Stop moving! I can still see it. My 2-year-old daughter and I were sitting on the rim of the bathtub. With one hand, I was trying to hold her foot, and at the same time I was trying as hard as I could to push away her other foot and her hands away. In my other hand were the nail scissors. I was trying to cut her toenails, trying again and again, unsuccessfully. She struggled, waved her hands around, and screamed, "No! I don't want you to, no!" "It won't take long. It doesn't hurt. No! Look, I cut my own fingernails. Come on. I don't want you to. I don't want it. I don't want it. Look, it has to be done. It's like getting a haircut. You won't feel a thing. No! Well, for 2 years, we've been cutting her nails. We try everything. Promises, distractions, but sometimes nothing works. Just imagine how easy everything would be. Stand there, clip, 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 done. If she could only give it a try, just once, just let it go, only once. If she could only trust me that I only want the best for her, then she would realize that it's no big deal. Yes, I'm stronger. I could force her. I could probably think of 1,000 punishments to force her to give in. But what would I accomplish? Would she be more relaxed next time? No. I can't force her to trust me.
Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. His tail swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that he might devour her child the moment it was born. There it is again, the battle being fought behind the scenes of our world. Let's imagine this scene once again. There is a woman who is giving birth to a child and a monster lurking to devour the newborn. The child is doomed to die and his mother can do nothing to protect him. A very daunting situation. What is going on? What does the dragon have against the small child? We could say that dragons are whimsical and don't really need a reason to kill. But why doesn't he just squash the woman? Why is he waiting for the child like a gladiator waits for his rival in the arena? It looks as if a duel is taking place. The dragon, the old serpent, the arch enemy of God, has to face this child and no one else. That's why the monster is waiting, and he has been waiting for a long time. From the very beginning of our world, everybody has been waiting for this showdown. The dragon and the child.
The book of Revelation is full of images and concepts from the Old Testament. With each sentence we read, we breathe in the spirit of the biblical prophets. This scene depicts one of the central themes of the Bible, the rebellion of humans against God in the first book of the Bible. There, the dragon, in a form of a serpent, also meets a woman and instills in her his own distrust of God. This is the point at which the battle for this mysterious child has its origin. Humans have just allowed themselves to be tempted and have lost their trusting relationship to God. The dragon has just won a terrifying victory, and through this has harmed God, his enemy, in the worst possible way. The dragon has driven God's children into a rebellion, and how does God react? He confronts his opponent in the Garden of Eden. On the same day, he declares war on the serpent.
And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. He will crush your head. There he is, the descendant, the child, who in the end will break the neck of the serpent. What a child this must be, since the promise was made by God. Humans have been waiting for this wonderful child, and the dragon is in awe of it. In fact, the whole Old Testament is a story of waiting for the promised one, and the New Testament is a story of his coming. In this vision, the dragon is waiting for him, and for him alone, not just for any child, but for the promised descendant, the Messiah, Christ. It is not blind rage that drives the dragon to the woman giving birth, rather it is the chance of winning a decisive battle. The text quickly reveals that this baby is no ordinary child.
She gave birth to a son, a male child who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. He carries the scepter, he stands above all nations, he is born as king of the world, he is anything but a normal baby. This ruler of the world, the Messiah, is the real focus of the book of Revelation. It's his book. He also calls himself Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, he who has the keys to the kingdom of the dead. Later in the book of Revelation, he is described as follows. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. The armies of heaven were following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Reading this makes us fall silent. John must have been frozen with awe when he saw the king and his army. The riders of Rohan in Lord of the Rings are a joke in comparison to this. This knight, it's him. He carries the scepter of the ruler of all nations. He is the one God spoke of ages and ages ago, the descendant of the woman. He is the one who faces the dragon in Revelation 12. At this point, if not earlier, I have to ask myself, why a baby? There comes the opponent of evil who has been awaited for thousands of years, and how does he arrive as a king with an army? Where are the white horses, the lightsaber, the supremacy? No, it's a baby, a bundle weighing a few pounds, absolutely helpless. Why does he deliver himself to the dragon? I ask myself, who will crush whose head? Would you want to fight a battle this way? Why is a child? This is as if a boxer has entered the ring wearing handcuffs.
And the image of the baby used in the book of Revelation has an echo in reality. We all know the Christmas story of the Messiah's birth. God becomes human. Christ comes down to earth. Indeed, he comes as a small, naked, absolutely helpless baby. The Messiah had to be fed and cleaned. He couldn't be any weaker. And later, as well, as a grown-up, Jesus the preacher doesn't seem to have anything in common with the Lord of Lords we've just read about in the book of Revelation. Why doesn't God go to battle as commander of his army of angels?
The answer lies in the nature of the war for our world, which is taking place and to which the book of Revelation wants to draw our attention. It is not a war for countries or treasures. It's about humans. God has lost them. How? Were they violently wrenched from him? No. In that case, it would be easy to destroy the dragon and release the hostages. God could have already violently defeated the snake in the Garden of Eden, if this were enough. No, humans have broken away from God. They deserted God. They distrusted him and distrust him until today. But he wants to win our trust back. This is the only reason he goes to this war. It's all about our trust in him, our heart. Because that's what was stolen from him, back then by the serpent. You cannot create trust using power or authority. If a government silences its critics by massacring them, this does nothing to allay the distrust of the citizens. The question to be answered is not who is stronger, but who is more faithful, who is good, who is really acting in our best interests. Whom can we trust? Or when we look at the text in Genesis, who has told us the truth? God or the serpent?
Trust cannot be achieved by decree. If this worked, everything would be very easy with my daughter, for example. Cutting nails, washing hair, taking pills, learning how to swim. If only there was a switch I could flip. Nor is it possible to persuade yourself or anyone else to feel trust. This is the reason we get so skeptical during electoral campaigns. Someone is courting me, asking for my trust, but why? So he or she will have more power and influence. At this point I start questioning the motive. Is the politician really concerned about the people and their well-being, or just about him or herself? Why do we trust our friends? Because we know them. Because we know that they have character and we can rely on them. We've had positive experiences with them. We've seen that we are important to them. We know that they don't only think of themselves. Best friends want the best for us, if necessary at their own expense. Such loyalty can only be seen in extreme situations.
That is why Jesus came to earth as a baby. By becoming human, a child, God gives all his powers away. He says, I don't care whether I am omniscient and almighty. I don't care whether thousands of angels are serving me. The only thing that counts is that you believe in me, that you trust me, that you are happy, and that you experience life. God doesn't just speak, he also takes actions. He makes himself small and naked, human. No backup, no safety net. He faces a dragon and risks everything, but through this he has proven that it's not about him, and he didn't back down when it became inconvenient. He saw it through. The question of who wants the best for us, of who has told us the truth at the tree, was answered vividly when God became human. Do you remember Tommy, the McGregor's son? The boy who grew up believing that his father was a mean guy who betrayed and left his mother. He was now an adult and fed up with a man who apparently had never been interested in him. But the day came when Tommy realized that he longed to see his father and confront him with this story. He found out his father's address, called him, arranged to meet him and booked a flight. But Tommy wasn't prepared for what awaited him. An impoverished man on a neglected piece of land. He looked calm and friendly, but was obviously shocked by his son's accusations. I never loved a woman other than your mother. I still love her. She betrayed me without saying a word. Until today, I didn't even know where she lived. In all these years, I stayed single and never gave up hope of seeing you again. I couldn't find you. That's why I decided never to move away from here, so that you could find me when you were grown up. Tommy was speechless. This couldn't be true. He couldn't have been lied to his whole life. But there was no wealthy businessman standing in front of him enjoying life with a younger woman, but a man who had given up everything, every career opportunity, every chance at love's bliss, and a comfortable life just for the tiny chance of seeing him, Tommy, again. A sacrifice such as this cannot be faked. Tommy had found out the truth about his father. He had found his father.
The child in the book of Revelation shows us God's real character. Jesus was supreme because he cast off everything and opened himself totally. Now, I have known this for about 20 years now, but it can still come as a surprise to me, maybe because it's in such contrast to all other stories, where victories are achieved through power struggles and massacres. Actually, I should know better. After all, this is how Jesus won me and my trust. He won it because he came the way he came, because he lived the way he lived, and because he died the way he died. Absolutely trustworthy. Sometimes I forget this. I even forget it often. Sometimes I'm so busy with superficial things and I have doubts. Sometimes life knocks me out. In critical situations, dark images sometimes appear of a God who will surely punish me, who has no understanding for my weaknesses, who turns away and is indifferent and says nothing. And I'm no longer able to be open to confide in him because there is only the ceiling and I feel betrayed. But no matter how far I've drifted away, there are irresistible images in my mind that can never leave me. A man who owns nothing, who lives nowhere, who doesn't take advantage of relationships and who avoids any popular admiration. He looks for the small and the weak ones and devotes himself to them. There is no strategy behind this self-debasement. A sacrifice such as this cannot be faked. This man, Jesus, is miles away from claiming any power or profit or from having any ulterior motives. Nothing prevents us from recognizing his character. Unswerving loyalty. This is how he convinced me, and this is how he will always win me back until I've learned to trust him even more.